Hello, Stuart, Unrepentant Atheist here, back with another classic call. I'm going to be stopping it and making various comments along the way. If you don't want that, if you don't want to hear my voice, put a link in the video below the video. You can go and watch it on your own. So let's get going and listen to this. Listen to this call.
Hey, how's it going?
Are you CDIV?
No.
This thing doesn't work for crap.
Yeah, they've got some kind of Ouija board. They're trying to predict who's going to call next, just in case you're wondering what that is.
What's your name?
Listen, I was just trying to figure out what exactly you don't believe in.
Well, this for one.
It's really an odd situation. I'm kind of glad you brought it up. It's an odd situation because normally you wouldn't define yourself by what you don't believe in. And yet, one thing we're spending a lot of time talking about is that atheism is the lack of belief in a God or gods.
But you can't define what God is.
When he called in and said he wants to know what it is that they don't believe, I think probably in the context, possibly what he means is maybe which gods don't you believe in, and now he's putting the burden on them to define the God that they don't believe in, which Matt is going to, flip around on him. So let's listen to him do that.
Well, that's not my job. See, the thing is that for any given definition of God that's been presented, I don't believe it. So, but I haven't heard them all. And if somebody has a new definition or explanation or idea about God, they're welcome to present it. And as long as they're able to convince me, then okay, I'll believe in your God.
I think that's very good, the way that he's just articulated that. A lot of the time when people say to me, you're an atheist, so you don't believe in God, and then they sort of say, well, which God? And I just say to them, the same as Matt is saying, really, that many definitions have been presented to me for gods. And for all those definitions, I've examined the evidence, and I've found there isn't sufficient evidence to warrant justification in belief. But there may be definitions of God out there for which I would be able to find evidence. So if you've got such a definition, let me know what it is and I'll investigate it, which I think that, is probably not a bad answer. And I've heard Matt say this before.
If you said, this piece of string was your God, well, it obviously exists, so I would believe in it. More important than I could list off all the things that I don't believe exist or don't believe are real, anything supernatural or anything like that.
But what is supernatural?
Anything beyond nature.
And that's defined through logic and reasoning?
Sure. If you can't provide reasonable, empirical, confirmable, falsifiable evidence and logical argument for what you're claiming, then there's no good reason to suppose that it exists. It's a way of saying we need to find out what's real and what's not real. Everybody agrees on that for the most part. So what tools are we going to use to try and determine what's real?
But you have to believe in your tools. You have to believe in logic.
Sure, you have to believe that.
This sounds to me like he's headed towards some kind of equivocation between, we've heard it so many times, between believing in the tools of science, reason and logic. And this is the same as accepting theological and supernatural claims.
That science and logic are valuable tools for distinguishing fact from fantasy.
But logic can't prove everything.
Can't prove everything.
Well, this is it. This is coming back to, science doesn't know everything. Therefore, let's find some magic being who can just give us all the answers to every question that we've ever asked.
Like if I say a very simple example, one that's easy to argue with, is if I say this sentence is false. If I say what I'm saying now is false,
right?
You can't prove that. It's unprovable. And one of the major axioms out of mathematics
that's a contradiction.
No logical system is both complete, explains everything, and self-consistent.
Are you a postmodernist?
I think Matt is giving him far too much credit here. The guy kind of sounds intelligent. I mean, he sounds like, he could even pass for a college lecturer, with the way that he's talking. Not with the substance of what he's saying, but with the sound of his voice. And I think Matt's giving him way too much credit here by asking if he's a postmodernist.
No, I'm not a postmodernist.
So you do think that there are things that we can know and learn and identify.
If I were going to define myself, I'd call myself a scientist.
Okay. So what kind of scientist are you? What is your PhD and what is your speciality?
And so that makes more sense to me than you saying you don't believe in something. If you said you were a scientist, I'd understand that. But I don't understand exactly what you're saying.
In the conventional sense, I don't go around calling myself a scientist because I tend to have a lot more respect than to toss that word around as a definition, as an explanation of myself. I am a proponent of science. I'm a proponent of the scientific method, falsifying ideas. This idea of
just thinking about what he said there, he's objecting somehow to Matt's position. His disbelief on the basis that he has not defined himself as a scientist. Why does it matter if you define what you are? Why would I need to call myself a scientist in order to hold rational positions based on evidence? I don't understand this
absolute
point.
Knowledge that you can't absolutely prove something or absolutely prove something false isn't the important thing. What we're looking for is the best explanation, the most reasonable explanation that is consistent with evidence.
But there you come up against your imagination because we just can't think of everything.
Well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter so much if you can imagine some other possibility. If I drop this pencil, did it fall because angels pulled it down? Or
what I'm trying to say is imagination is the only thing that brings us to new knowledge. If you can't use your imagination, then you're stuck in someone else's...
Well, I don't quite get that. In what way does imagination bring us to new knowledge? Surely exploration, gathering data, observation, analysis of evidence is what brings us to new knowledge. Okay, I suppose development of hypotheses and then testing them, I suppose that might be classed as using your imagination to start the journey to discover new knowledge, but he's bringing up some really weird points.
Who said we can't use imagination?
I'm sorry?
Who said we can't use imagination? I'm just saying that you don't imagine an answer and say that it's therefore right. Of course.
No, that's exactly what you do. That's called a scientific hypothesis.
No. A hypothesis is not proven yet. Hypothesis isn't, this is the answer. I'm all in favor of using your imagination and your creativity to say what other possible answers are there. But then you actually have to go out and test that. If you just come up with an imaginary explanation and say, this is the answer, that is not a good way of determining fact from fantasy.
Do you recall there was a theorem in mathematics called Fermat's?
I've heard of it, yeah.
If he hadn't hypothesized that, it's possible that no one would have asked the question.
Yeah, Fermat, he wrote down a theorem, I think 250 years ago. He didn't write down the solution. I believe he wrote it in the margin, and it was only solved by a British mathematician, I think, in the 1990s. He spent about 5 years on it, presented a solution to it. It was disproven, and he had to come back and spend another 5 years. I think he got there in the end, yes.
At least not at the time that he had, and led to further knowledge.
Sure.
So while I agree with you, there are a lot of crackpot ideas out there.
Yes.
I think you still need imagination.
I agree. Yeah. I'm just saying you don't believe something until there's sufficient evidence to justify that belief. Somebody can hypothesize about alien life on another planet, but that doesn't, and it's true. If there is some other life on another planet right now, it is absolutely true right now, but we have no way of knowing that. And until we have sufficient evidence, then there's not justification to believe it. And therefore, I would be wrong to believe that there's life on another planet right now.
But I also think you're wrong to believe in the tools that we currently have.
What better tool is there?
Additional tools will...
What better tool is there?
This is the strange thing. He's saying Matt's wrong to believe in the tools that we have. We've got, we've got science, scientific method, we've got logic, we've got reason, we've got we've got all these, we've got these amazing methods for determining the nature of reality, and he's saying that Matt is wrong to trust in those. Let's see what else he proposes that should be used.
Within the scientific method, you called yourself a scientist. What better tool than science?
There is no better tool, but
there you go.
So these tools have been currently sufficient. Is our mathematics sufficient?
It's not absolutely sufficient, I will grant you that. However, it is the best thing that we currently have, and it has been proven time and time and time again that while it may not be perfect, it's pretty good at determining the real world and what's actually happening. So yes, is it perfect? No. Is it really freaking good? Yes. I mean, and so until we come up with something better, why not keep going with that?
Just keep in mind that most of the time, the things people come up with are entirely wrong.
Yeah, that's true. And it's science that shows that.
Most ideas are entirely wrong. And you just have to face the reality that there are a lot of things we're not going to know for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's nothing, you can't dampen the human spirit by saying you cannot come up with something that's out there. Because a lot of things, a lot of new ideas,
see, you keep making accusations.
Turn into something real.
I don't know what he's getting at there. Is he saying that people, is he saying that somehow we've got to give some credence to proposals, unproven proposals and hypotheses to avoid dispiriting people? It sounds to me like that's what he's saying. And I kind of get that in a way because, I've got a friend who's got all sorts of wacky ideas about, how the aliens put human DNA on the planet. And, he's got some really, crazy ideas about aliens and, and I'm debunking them all the time. And, I get where he's coming from. I kind of feel like I'm dispiriting him to the extent that he no longer phones me. But, what can you do when people have got these fantasies that have got absolutely no basis in reality?
Hang on. You keep saying things that we completely agree with, and yet you keep accusing us of things that we don't do.
Well,
we're not here dampening imagination.
The reason I called is because earlier you called some people morons.
Sure.
I really think that's the wrong attitude.
Well,
it's irrelevant. Obviously, anybody who's familiar with Matt's style is that, he does call people idiots and morons, and it's completely irrelevant to anything really which is of any substance which is going on the atheist experience. And if that's the only reason he's called in, frankly, he shouldn't have bothered.
If there were people running around, just to play along for a second, if there were people running around advocating that Santa Claus was real and that we needed to make new laws based on the orders that they got from Santa Claus, don't you think they're morons?
We're very young.
Okay, they're adults. Let me add that qualifier. Are they morons now?
Well, maybe they need some analysis or something.
Yeah, maybe they do.
Can you imagine the mentality of a child that still exists in an adult?
Yes, it's called religious.
Those
people who are still clinging to their invisible friends, those people who are buying into hypotheses, religious hypotheses, that can't be falsified, that have no evidence to support them, and they are basing their life decisions around them, and they are imposing those beliefs upon other people, trying to make other people's life decisions based on their own beliefs. That is asinine, and you're a moron to buy into that. I'm not trying to be insulting by that. I was being humorous earlier. But it is unwise to believe in something until there's sufficient justification. And you, as somebody who advocates science and the scientific method, would you believe in something before there was evidence to justify it?
Well, I believe there are a lot of human things that are explainable. I think some people with interesting ideas like that, they could have a mental health issue.
Sure.
So, you need to be a little bit philosophical.
Okay. A little bit? So 80...
He didn't really answer Matt's question, did he? Matt said to him, would you believe in anything that had not got sufficient evidence to support it? And he just completely evaded the question. He just went on talking about something else, some sort of ideas that people have got, and then saying that they might have mental issues. He just completely avoided it.
80% of the population of the United States is Christian. Are you really trying to write all that off as 80% of the people need
Well, they
mental
might
health?
be making they're switching cause and effect there, and they're saying because these ideas are good, the religion must be true. Whereas, really deep down, they believe the ideas, goodness between people, and
Sure.
all the good things that a lot of religious people advocate.
Yeah, he's stumbling now because he's completely realised how futile and pathetic his call is, and he's kind of failing to articulate anything.
Okay, but
But you can't call a moron. You just need to
I
call
can
them
if I want
somewhat
to.
ignorant.
You might not think it's the best thing, and I'll agree it's not the best. I don't come on the show specifically to do name calling, and I've spent a great deal of time on various shows making specific points about specific.
Well, I mean, he says Matt can't call them morons, and he's just said 2 minutes ago that the reason a lot of people have got these beliefs is because they've got some form of mental illness. So, who's calling people names?
She's going into great detail about the history of the biblical.
Which sounds odd to me because, I mean, the kind of way that he's talking. He sounds to me basically like he believes in the supernatural, and he's probably some kind of theist and believes all sorts of what I would think are completely wacky things. And yet he's turning around and saying that other people are the ones with mental illness because of the things that they believe.
Canon, or talking about the scientific method. We've gone into great detail on these things over and over and over again. But at some point, when you can have a reasonable discussion with somebody, and if they're still going to stay unreasonable, then you have to call a spade a spade. Maybe if you call in and you make all these.
Well, there's obviously we've seen Matt over the years. He's stated there what his standard is for the way he operates. There's going to be there's going to be a discussion between two people, and both are going to be reasonable. But at the point where the other person stops being reasonable, that's the time to come in and call them a moron. And then eventually put the phone down on them. So even in those days, his modus operandi, as it were, had been set out.
These accusations about what we're doing that we're not doing. We're not trying to kill the human spirit or imagination. I'm an advocate of science in the same way that you are. And I'm an advocate of human spirit and imagination and creativity in the same way that...
Well, he's not an advocate of science, though, is he? Because he's already previously said in the conversation that we're wrong to trust the tools that we have. If one of the tools that we have is science, and he's saying we're wrong to trust it, how could he call himself a scientist?
You are. So apart from the fact that you're having a knee-jerk reaction to the name, to the label atheist, which, by the way, is exactly why we're here, to eliminate that knee-jerk reaction. Because atheism...
You're limiting yourself. Anyway, have a good one.
Okay, I'm limiting myself.
3 out of 4.
Okay, guys, that's it. Really strange call. I don't like that guy at all. I've seen him on another call where Matt did call him out and say, what kind of a scientist are you? You've called yourself a scientist. And he suddenly said, oh, it's not really relevant to the conversation. And Matt said to him quite rightly, well, it's strange you say that because you're the one that defined yourself as a scientist, so I thought it might be relevant. I thought it was this call, but it must be another one. Let me know what you think of that. I found that a really strange call. I don't really quite know where the guy's coming from, what it is that he does believe. Is he a scientist? Isn't he? Really strange. Let me know what your comments are, and I'll be back again with another video very soon. Bye.